Hello, welcome back to Evil Genius Props. My name is Mike and am your Evil Genius for today. So what we're doing today is going to make a separate custom woodworking mallet, and not just any woodworking mallet. It's going to be Mjolnir, which is Thor's hammer from the MCU. It's not actually going to be a Mjolnir replica per se, like a replica prop, but it is going to be Mjolnir inspired and similar shapes, similar ideas. So let's go to the bench and get started. So this is what we're starting with. It's actually, if you've seen any of my other videos where I do woodworking, I've used this occasionally just as this to sort of pound a chisel or pound some wood together. And what this actually is we had a big sugar maple tree in our front yard. And in spring of 2021, I want to say, maybe 2020, I don't remember. Those years just blend together for some reason. Anyway, it fell down. Nearly took out the house, didn't, but as a result, I had them leave the wood behind, mostly for firewood, which is what this started life as, was a chunk of firewood. So I cut it up, not particularly well. Uh, I've got better tools, better techniques since then, but I got it close. And we're going to take this. I sort of started this project that you can see sort of the inspiration there for Mjolnir. But we're going to clean it up a little bit more, uh, fill in these cracks. Because it was firewood, it wasn't fully dried. We got some cracks in there. If I really cared about it, I probably wouldn't. If I did serious woodworking, I probably wouldn't use this, but we're going to fill those in. And then I also cut another piece of that same tree to be the handle, so we're going to put that in there. And then roughly that will be what our mallet looks like. Again, I don't really do a whole lot of serious woodworking where I need to have it be perfect, but I do enough that I want to make it look, want to have one, but there's no reason why I can't make it look extra nerdy. So I'm going to go clean this up and we'll come back. All right, so I trimmed down the head a little bit more. So it's about 2.5 inches tall. So that way I have a little bit more of a handle. Again, I don't need a huge mallet head on this. So trimmed that down, cleaned up the 45s on the sides. Now, it should have 45s this way, but I'd rather have the bigger striking surfaces, so we're not going to mess with those. And then really all the next step is going to be is just drill a hole down through and slide the handle in. So next step's going to be over at the drill press. All right, so while we get this set, part of what we want to do here is figure out where exactly the middle is. So it's 5.5. So right here, 2 3/4. See how big this is. So 2 3/8. Whatever half of 2 3/8 is. All right, so there's where we're going to center our drill. Okay, so I went ahead and used the drill press and put a hole through there. Now, you might be noticing a bit of a problem. I checked with the local kindergarten. This doesn't work, but this gives me a start. So what we're going to do then from here is square this off. This is basically the biggest hole I could get close to on the drill press. But we have a start. So what we're going to do is make that a little bit bigger to fit the handle in and square it off. But the idea is going to be we'll drop this in through, and you can see that it's not cut very straight, but it also tapers. So we'll cut it in and drop it this way and taper it in. So I'm using my marking knife and just going to cut across. Just sort of mark out where I need it to be. And you can see there, if I get the right angle on the lighting, sort of the cutout that I'm going to work on clearing out. All right, so I'm going to sort of use the chisel to cut this out. Now, the irony is that I would use this to help pound in the chisels. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. But we'll get started with it and see what we work out. So here's what I've done. I put my coping saw through the hole I made to try to use that to be able to cut through and square things off a little bit. All right, took a bit of work, but I think I might have this to a point where I can get that even. Not quite even, but it's a little past it, but that's fine. I have a wedge. I don't know how well this wedge is going to work. So I'm going to clean up the edges on this because that's not a comfortable handle. But we'll go from there. So I've rounded it off. I can just hit it with some sandpaper. And hit it, I think, with the power sander here. But so far, so good. All right, so I've got it all put together. And there's this big old crack right here because it's dried out since I cut it originally, and that's fine. We're going to deal with it. I put some tape on the edges here, and we're going to fill this in with resin. And what we're going to do is do a light blue to look sort of like Thor's lightning. So that's going to be our next steps, and then we'll set the whole thing in something and let it sit overnight. Probably put it in a bag because I don't trust that those cracks don't go all the way through. All right, so we'll go ahead and mix up some resin. I don't have very much. I don't use it very often, but when I do, it's nice to have it. All right, so it's 30 milliliters of the part A. Pretty sure that's more than I'm going to need. But I would rather have extra. Forgot to grab a stir stick, so I'll do that, and then we'll add some coloring. Just some light blue. Oh, it's the wrong part. Took up too much. All right. I'm going to put that over a bag just because I don't trust that that parts of that crack might go all the way through to a part where it could leak out. And that's not what we want. Try adding some drops of a darker blue. Well, I like that blue better. I'm just not sure how much of it's actually going to get into the crack at this point. All right, well, we'll let that do its thing. And we'll come back and scrape that off and see what we've come up with. All right, so the epoxy setup, I went and scraped off the excess with a chisel, just sort of pushed it right along there. Didn't show that because I wasn't sure how well that would work, but it worked great. So our next step is just sand that smooth and sand off the excess epoxy that got in there and on the sides. But otherwise, we're making good progress. I like the color. I like the look. Hopefully it's enough to help keep it together. All right, I sanded it, gave it a little bit of a quick rundown on the miter saw to trim off the edges. And at this point, our next step is seal it. So I'm going to get hit with a gloss lacquer. That should help bring out the resin in here. And pretty much after that, we'll call it good. And here we are. Got the gloss on there. Some spots where maybe it didn't work out so well, but I really like the spalting on there. And it doesn't really show up very well, but if I put a light in there, you can see that blue from the resin, and hopefully that'll help keep it all together. Fortunately, I'm not really a serious woodworker, so I'm not going to use this all that often. But when I need it, it'd be nice to have. And it'll be nice to be reminded of Mjolnir. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.